Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network. KingofPodcasts.com.
Previously on the Wrestling is Real podcast. If we only had an hour, it's as if WWE really is thinking that way. It's no longer about the storylines. They don't care about telling intricate stories that play with our emotions. They don't want to do that right now. The purpose of the TV shows is to showcase for 3 hours almost on Netflix or 3 hours on USA Network for the fans that you know are absolutely going to go and pay their tickets to go watch WWE. It's a promotion to say, hey, come watch us when we come to your town. That is it.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
This is episode 928 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. King of Podcasts here with you. Website is kingofpodcasts.com. And of course, a lot to get into tonight. That clip, I presented that case, and I want to expand on that tonight. If WWE only had 1 hour television, I think we would have very little complaints about the programming altogether. But we know that's not the case. And that's also due in part to all the things that are going on with their programming and the amount of time they have to fill on a regular basis to give us good quality content. And let's be honest with each other for a change. I don't know of any wrestling promotion anywhere that could take the task, the daunting task, of filling out roughly 10 hours of programming every week. And we can talk about what's the main programming that there is, which is Raw, SmackDown, NXT. Roughly 8 hours. We could say 7.5. We can nitpick on that, but roughly 8 hours. Then there's main event. Then there's Speed. Then there's LFG. Then there's Evolve. There's so many other shows they have underneath their umbrella, under their portfolio, which TKO Group Holdings really cares about. That is the focus here. It's so much that they are burdened with. But they do have the resources. They are capable of hiring people to go and come in and do storytelling and do things with the programming to be distinct and different. And also remember, to expect out of all these roughly over 10 to a dozen hours of wrestling every week, if they have a PLE, whether it's NXT, whether it's the main roster, all of that there. It's incredibly hard to try to do storytelling for that. So when I think about it, yeah, I am giving a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to the company. But that doesn't take away the fact that they couldn't go ahead and hire the team necessary and be able to go and fill time within. Now, of course, they're filling with matches. They don't want to fill with storylines. They don't want to go and work about any of that because the team that they have there is not capable of doing that. It's already hard enough for various shows on Netflix or any other streaming outlets, Amazon Prime, whatever, to try to put together 10 hours of programming for a season once a year. I mean, that's a writer's room. There's a lot of people in there. Now, that Unreal show that's going to be coming out, that is an undertaking. And, I guess they're going to let us see a little bit behind the scenes, what they want us to see of how the writer's room really is. But the truth is, I can complain about storytelling till I'm blue in the face, but I also have to go and consider the situation that they were left with. Because remember, they've been added more time to work off of. With Raw, they didn't decide to go 2 hours. They decided to go ahead and allow themselves to go as long as they want. But they're more than obligated, it looks like, to go more than 2 hours. If Netflix can get the 3 hours out of them, they want to do that. And then when it comes to SmackDown, they relegated the 3 hours off the bat. And supposedly, next month, they're supposed to be changing and relegating that show back to 2 hours. But these TV networks, these linear TV networks in particular, they want to take as much time as they can because when it comes to CW, it doesn't benefit them to just to fill 1 hour. They want to have both hours filled because the 2 hours in prime time are the hours they want to cover. So they're paying top dollar to have something that will fill the airtime. And that's what they're trying to do. And then for some of those people out there that, of course, the billions or whatever they say that they have of the social media following, they're only picking up clips of what's even worthwhile. But the problem is, what's even worthwhile among the clips that you find on social media, they're not even that good either. If you really wanted to go and trim down what is really quality, what's storytelling out of their programming, it might be 5 minutes a week at best. Probably not that hard to go and find if you really just filter through it and summarize it and narrow it down. But this is a bigger issue from the internal side, that the heads of TKO Group Holdings, the shareholders, the robber barons, this private equity that has taken over WWE and gave Vince McMahon the valuation of $9 billion to let the company go so they can rape and pillage it, use the intellectual property, and milk it dry. And they're doing that right now. And Mark Shapiro, who, for the credit for him, he's more than happy to go ahead and gloat about it. TKO President Mark Shapiro. He spoke yesterday as we recorded this program at the JP Morgan Global Technology Media and Communications Conference in Boston. And there were various topics he discussed. But the initial talk about the laundry list of accomplishments and what has been done with this company and what they've been able to do so far. I want to just take just a 2-minute clip of Mark Shapiro gloating at what's so good about WWE today from a business standpoint. So let me go ahead and play that for you right now.
It starts with the fact that we are humbly delivering on the promise. And we still have a lot of work to do, obviously, but we are delivering on the promise. On the media rights side, I think the Netflix deal, and we can talk more about that, was a transformative deal for WWE, and nobody saw that coming. So that hits the way we've laid out SmackDown, what NXT is doing with CW, and then the actual performance of Raw. Just overall media-wise, we have a lot of experience here. We have a lot of years of experience here, history, buyer and seller. We know what we're doing, and that's playing out. On the live event side, really across the board, internationally, nationally, we're setting records, gate records, attendance records. Our dynamic pricing, which is something we frankly introduced when we bought the WWE or merged with the WWE, is playing out. Yield is playing out. Site fees are playing out. And then on the global partnerships front, we put out a target of $375 million for the year, and I feel confident that we're going to hit that. We have an incredible momentum. And then you move over to the other side of the fence on really cost containment. I think that my CFO, Andrew Schleimer, and I said that when we brought it all together, TKO, that we would realize a net savings of $100 million. We blew through that. Now we've got IMG cooking and On Location and PBR, our recent acquisition, and we put out a target of $30 million in savings, and we're, as stated in our earnings call, we're above $40 million on that front. We also raised guidance on earnings. Since the formation of TKO, we've had significant, meaningful margin expansion, adjusted EBITDA margin expansion. We already generate significant free cash flow. We have a strong balance sheet. And when you put all that together, I think it really underlies our conviction on the industrial logic of this merger.
So that's Mark Shapiro. Now, we're not going to get into the whole nuts and bolts of what he's trying to go and say because it's all a lot of business jargon in there. But what we're getting out of that is Endeavor Group Holdings, Ari Emanuel, the group that created the initial run as a private equity investor. Okay, they weren't shareholders, they didn't have a public stock offering. But what they did was when they started buying up intellectual properties like the UFC, then the WWE, Professional Bull Rodeo Association, IMG, among these other outlets, then they put them all together so they could get them up as a public stock. So they're making money off the shareholders, buying into the stock. They're making money off the properties, maximizing their revenue right away to make their money back. That's what Mark Shapiro is saying right there. And that in no way benefits the fans that watch this product every week. I just want to leave that right there for a second. I really want you to understand where I'm coming from here and see that the business side does not care about what this company is doing right now. So they've done something within the environment to create a live event experience that there are the base of fans solely on the fact that NXT was such a product that everybody was really getting behind. And the pipe dream that the NXT feel, the vibe, they expanded it into the main roster. That is what they've done. Decided to create that same kind of dynamic. They're trying to bring some of those stars in there to try to create that NXT feel. What that Full Sail University feel was, what that Performance Center feel is right now. They're trying to make that happen. They're showcasing in a very strategic way, taking the events, the premium live events, on the road. They want to cut the amount of house shows that are coming up now. They want to make it where this is a worldwide property, make it a tougher ticket to grab when you see it here in the States. Because you got to go to WrestleMania to find it, or you got to go to one of these other major pay-per-views, and they will charge top dollar because they can, and on merchandise, and on so much more. And they will take all these broadcasters' money so they can program whatever they want. Because it's the valuation, it's the value of the intellectual property. These broadcasters are buying into this. These broadcast executives, they don't know any better. Netflix doesn't know any better. They just know that's a property we want. Because the streaming outlets, remember, it's like Disney Plus. Look, they picked up Marvel. They picked up Star Wars. They picked up Pixar, right? All of that. Because on those streaming services, they care about, who's behind this? It's like they don't even give a shit about what the programming is. It's because of who's behind it. And because WWE has their brand so prominent out there, it doesn't matter if the programming is shit. They're going to just promote the hell of it because they can. So AMC, more than happy to take some money off of that. CW, more than happy to give some money into it. Netflix, USA Network, Peacock, they're doing it. This thing has been bloated more than you ever thought. But the thought process of when the sale of this entity was going to be brought together and WWE was going to be under the control of TKO Group Holdings, now we know. Now, it will be a different story. Okay? It'll be a different story if we knew that Triple H or The Rock or whoever else that's from the legacy of this brand that was here under Vince McMahon, that they would try to go and hold on to some of the ideals, the passion, the legacy that this company has, and try to hold on to it and try to keep it and just try to keep it where you get storytelling out there, give us professional wrestling, but also make sports entertainment because that's what the WWE was built on. So the fans might not want sports entertainment, but you know what? All of what you enjoyed in the past 50 years has something to do with sports entertainment. Just because you don't like the name of it, it was still that. And professional wrestling, for that matter, minus the fact that WWE was really good at the fact of gimmicks and storytelling and things like that, that's what really was their draw. And the thing is for WWE is that they don't worry about if they sway away from that because of the fact that they're the biggest company anyway. They have the audience. They have the global reach. It's already built in. So if they wanted to make changes to it, yeah, they're taking a hit on the TV ratings. They're taking a hit on the audience watching on these linear outlets. Absolutely. But they don't care because of the money that they're making. So Mark Shapiro, and then we're going to get into some comments from the mailbag I want to go ahead and bring up as well, just to kind of run through things after Backlash that we had this weekend. Not much to say about that. And we can also talk about Double or Nothing coming up next week, which we now know they have Anarchy in the Arena, a lot of great matches, championship matches on the card. We'll talk all about that. But some of the topics that Mark Shapiro presented that got some headlines from the wrestling press at this JP Morgan conference. So when it comes to house shows or live events, Mark Shapiro indicated that WWE will continue to prune its schedule of non-televised events. This aligns with a trend in recent years where they've reduced the number of such events. Now, we know when it comes to the main roster or the roster of wrestlers, yeah, they're probably happy to go ahead and get some fewer events to go and work on. They're not working 300 dates a year like they used to. I bet you they like that part. But I don't know if that really makes much of a difference on their contract and how many dates they get and what comes with that. Like they didn't get contracts that are any much different than the independent contracts that they still are. As far as I know, their contracts are still the same. And we obviously know as a corporation, they're more than happy to go ahead and let people go because it's based on performance, based on, are you towing the company line? I mean, are you really trying to do something more for your character and not just taking a paycheck? Because just like in any corporate outlet, there are certain employees that will just work the bare minimum just to make a paycheck. That's it, to collect one. Ticket pricing. He sees there's a tremendous upside in ticket pricing for WWE events, including suggesting potential increases in the future. Bingo. So he talked about On Location and IMG and all these other things where they have companies that they can provide VIP packages for their events to the pricing of $40,000 for SummerSlam coming up. So we know the ticket pricing is going to go up across the board. So the families are going to be priced out. And then the other discussion that was brought up was the docuseries on Netflix about Unreal, which will be released in June on Netflix. He mentions the conversation with President Nick Khan of WWE not revealing too much of the creative process, likening it to not give away the Coca-Cola recipe. The series is part of a strategy to provide shoulder programming to drive viewership to WWE content on Netflix, which will become the new home for Raw, which has become the new home for Raw. So this was all brought up here. And Mark Shapiro is saying some things, if you really read through, it's not good. So let's go into what he actually said about this, specifically about the pricing. We cut those house shows down to where we're doing 200 events a year. We cut them down 35%. We feel it's a good place to be, and we'll continue to prune as we go through. There's tremendous upside on global partnerships, tremendous upside on ticket pricing, tremendous upside on site fees, dynamic pricing, yield management. All areas we're really focusing on pushing on is related to live events, and our margins are expanding as it relates to live events. No house shows in August, by the way. Nothing scheduled. And let me put this well. When they talk about global partnerships, look at the glutton of advertising we have now on the mat for a premium live event, for every match we have at a premium live event, or what they have in general. They are a commercial machine. Are they getting a lot of return on investment? I don't know. But they're more than happy to go and put this out there, and they're trying to treat themselves like a sports franchise. They can pick this all up. Meanwhile, the audience they're picking up right now for live programming is no better than a Stanley Cup final or an NHL game or a Major League Baseball game. It's not very high up on the list. So the business part, the corporation doesn't care about this. They don't care about the internal part, about if the entertainment for the fans are good. They just care if it sustains us to increase pricing, to increase our partnerships, and to make our broadcast bettors content, because they're going to stay with us. We're going to make sure they keep the deals on with us as long as they can. By the way, Fifo was the one that transcribed that. I want to make sure that point out there. But that's the business side. And as I said, because of all the deals they made, just like a good corporation, they bite more than they can chew. And because it's a corporation, they're not willing to go and put out the resources or the wherewithal or the staffing to be able to go and support all this programming effectively. They don't want to do that. But that's just like a good corporation. And it's really hard for the fans out here that might be listening to this, the juvenile delusional fandom around here. I know it's hard for you to understand all this. It doesn't really compute to you. I understand that. I've been around long enough to know what this business is doing and how it's working out. But that's why the creative part is so important. They can be on this upside right now, but there will be a slide sooner than later. And when I read some of the comments I get on a regular basis about the programming right now and where they're going with it, it's just not good. And people are complaining about this on a regular basis, and there's just not much they can say about it. People are just not happy about it. There is no plan for John Cena. Now, I want to take about the John Cena heel turn that I put up here. I made comments about the disappointing heel turn during Backlash, and I got comments from that on my TikTok feed. Thorough Jojo 215 says, I guarantee every title defense, John's going to use the title to win. He did it to Cody and Randy. Just know when the ref gets hit, it's coming. Greg Harvey says, R-Truth is going to go after John Cena for putting him through a table. We already know that's set up for Battleground coming up. Or the Saturday Night Spin event, right? And Angel Splinger says the rivalry is going to go on all the way to SummerSlam. I guess that means Randy Orton. We'll find out. Now, comments on my YouTube feed. Let me go bring those up real quick. Had a few. First, Breezy Hack chimed in on several episodes that I talked about. Or actually, he wrote twice in about my episode from last Wednesday. Who is WWE prioritizing for a push and where? And he brings in a couple different comments. So, number one, this WWE is more teenage drama I cannot stand. Time for Judgment Day to split up for good. Finn is playing third in this group. Finn deserves better. I think they kept the groups growing because of Dom. I think Liv should use him 2 more times to get the title off of Io, and hopefully she helps Finn take the belt off of him in a fatal 3-way match that includes AJ Styles. That's when JD and Finn beats up Dom and Carlito. AJ Styles joins in as he and Finn are laughing together. Raquel and Liv throws up the Too Sweet sign with Finn and AJ walking out to end a pay-per-view or even a Monday Night Raw. Best way to dismantle this Judgment Day allows us to see a babyface Dom redemption story arc, but he has a mask one, and we don't know it's him with a different name as a new luchador takes off as a El Grande Americano. That's what he says here. And then he writes, Orton loses at the pay-per-view. He mentioned that for Backlash, and that Becky will probably beat Lyra Valkyrie for the belt. And he gave some predictions, and it looks like, I don't know if he got any of them right. Oh, no, he did say Jacob Fatu would win. So there you go. And, of course, I got to have comments from James Batten 95.4, who writes about the Backlash recap. In regards to John Cena's heel turn, remember, KOP, I predicted this when the turn actually happened on one of your videos. You scoffed then, but I'm glad that you admit it is failed now. And yes, they are wasting Cobb because this bloodline story is deader than women's IC and U.S. titles. Well, James, the only reason I held out hope is because the initial start of the angle, The Rock was there. And if The Rock remained in the storyline, I think we would have gotten some real juice out of the storyline. We didn't even need Rock to be there every week, but just explain that John Cena had his soul snatched and went this route. This heel turn right here, it's worse than Sting's heel turn, okay? The heel turn they put on Sting in WCW, this is worse. It feels contrived. And John Cena could do his very best to cut promos and create this somber persona and go out there in his normal gimmick, but it doesn't work. All we care about right now is that John Cena is going to hold on to this belt until somebody beats him at the end of this run, before his retirement comes to play. And then they become that champion. That's all we're waiting for. So we're going to just see the list of stars they're going to go ahead and bring in here, which, by the way, look what they're already doing right now. Randy Orton, listen, you have him RKO John Cena 3 weeks in a row. You knew he wasn't going to win. R-Truth now in this involved. Does anybody think he's going to win? I mean, you can't expect it, So there's all these problems now that the company has, and they're not figuring things out. Backlash gave us nothing to work off of. It's just the premium live event just to fill up time. That's it. Not much else they can do with it. But my original point about, because of the people that are working behind the scenes there in the company. Bruce Pritchard probably remembers, even going back to this time in Houston, working in the promotion for, Bronco Lubitsch, I think it is. I forget the guy's name. But all the major promotions in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they all operated off of a 1-hour time slot. All the best wrestling shows. ECW was one of the last shows that was relegated to a 1-hour format. Because remember, TNA into the 2000s originally was a 1-hour format, then expanded to 2. But all the other ones, because remember, everybody talked about the 60-minute adrenaline rush, and TNA Impact at 60 minutes was awesome. How many of those 1-hour shows weren't great? NXT as an hour long was fantastic. Remember that part. When we saw the Shield or the Wyatts or the Women's Revolution, that was all an hour format. And that was jam-packed to the gills. I think a world-class championship wrestling, hour long. And WWE was a different story. WCW was a different story. Amazing they were going to do 2 hours, but they did a great job of it. And they filled the time up, and it was really well done. They had storylines, they had gimmicks, everything. And the pleasure that we even had a primetime wrestling or a Raw that was 2-hour format before we had all these other shows come on in the early to mid-90s and change everything up. I don't want to blame Eric Bischoff, but he's the first one that started it. Got the 2-hour time slot. But then the changes made where we started getting other shows coming up. Because WCW and the deal that Eric Bischoff had with Turner Broadcasting, they had time to fill. And Ted Turner and the team were more than happy to go and give more time to build up off the success. Just like a good corporation. So they gave more time to create Thunder. And then make Nitro 3 hours. And go on from there. And again, who's going to fill that time? As we said, whenever you give more time like that to a wrestling promotion, yeah, it's tough for them to fill. It's one thing to ask them for a monthly pay-per-view or for a quarterly pay-per-view and to build it up for 3 hours. It can be absolutely done. But this extra time, like this extra amount of time, SmackDown is a task now. I mean, I don't know anyone that's watching right now. And unfortunately, the fact that SmackDown is going to drop to 2 hours, people might be excited about that, but we can see that with 3 hours, they have a tough time filling that time. And of course, they want to go with filling time with wrestling matches. They prefer to do that. If you at least had creative team, some creativity, some creative control to build something more off of some of this, we would have a different way to look at it. But here's the thing. What Mark Shapiro was saying at this conference is somewhat hypocritical. So there's a point where he mentions the premium live event strategy, very high quality but low volume. And uniqueness he claims differentiates WWE from other content producers. I mean, it's not true. It sounds good in principle. He says it's high quality, low volume, but no. There's a lack of innovation and engaging storytelling. Just there. They don't even want to try. They're not willing to go and have it. And you know somebody that people don't want to go and hear from? Of course, you're going to hear somebody much more that's going to be talked about in the fact is somebody that's always talked about this pretty regularly, that has to go make comments about the state of wrestling today. Of course, Vince Russo. So he blames it on the fans, the juvenile delusional fandom, which he calls the wrestling marks. Here's what he says.
This was all done for house show pops.
Yep.
That's it. It was all done for Sammy to run in with a chair, Sammy to hit, then Punk, then Jay. It was all done for house show pops. Bro, you can get all the pops in the world. You guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't mean to insult the audience. You're never going to get an audience with a brain. Okay, you can get what's the dog that we train? What is it called, Chris? The Pavlov's. Yeah, you can have all the Pavlov's dogs you want. Mm-hmm. Any person with a brain watching this show is going to say exactly what I'm saying. So what you're doing is you're doing everything for house show pops. Yep. You're doing everything for the people you already have. And every other person that might be on the fence is saying exactly what I'm saying right now.
And the thing was, that's exactly what I'm saying. When you look at the TV show right now, I said it on the Backlash recap. Hey, look at the house show. Look at all the fun they're having. They're all chanting, sing-alongs. Oh, hooliganism. I want to go to that. That's all they're doing. That's exactly what this show and this product is right now. The fan base doesn't want to go and make any admissions to it. The rest of the wrestling world is looking at this and just saying, well, it's the carnival. It's the big top right here, but this corporation is restricting, and they're conflicting with the operation of this professional wrestling company to be able to go and do more. Because they allow people that are, yes, people. Okay, let me put it like this as well. The creativity process in a corporation, creative doesn't mesh with corporate. Do you understand that? In a corporation like TKO Group Holdings, creativity is not a requirement. It's not a mandate. It's not a necessity. If you're working for a corporation, creativity usually goes out the window. Because creativity comes from somewhere else. Think about every kind of project you see out there that any major movie studio puts out or any major TV studio puts out. If there's anything creative, it's not within that group of writers that they have on board. It's like whoever they have contracted that can come in, might have a book adapted or some other story adapted or whatever it is. Somebody comes up with the idea. The corporation just buys it. But they're not in charge of creativity. They're not going to. And they're not going to care about the direction of the company unless it keeps making money. And the corporation is not going to address the creative situation. They don't care about that part. They're going to continue to make their money as much as they want. But what they will also do is they're going to neglect and ignore the creative process. They don't care how the fans get to the shows. They don't care how many fans are watching on television either. But what they're going to do is they're going to move along and find ways to continue to profit and maximize their revenue. And if the creative creates a rift with the fans that say, oh, we're not watching anymore, and you see an erosion of fans stepping back, yeah, they're not going to go to the AEW. They're not going to go to the other wrestling promotions. They're just going to drop off and do something else. Put it like this, too. You might have a percentage, less than half, I want to say, of the diehard wrestling fans that are on here, the juvenile delusional fandom that are on social media, that are consuming wrestling of all different promotions with their biases towards WWE and basically looking at everybody else as inferior, or looking at other promotions and saying, well, what if we had this person in our fold, right? And that's what they do. It's like the thought process of being a fan of a sports franchise that likes to pick up free agents and doesn't want to develop talent, because that's what WWE is as well. And the sports-minded process as a franchise, say if they were just an individual team, whatever sport you want to pick, they don't want to pick young stars they can build up and create the future off of. No. They want to go and just pick up free agents that have been established somewhere else and monetize off of them. That's what they want. So if anybody is listening at all to what I'm saying when it comes to the corporate side of this, listen, I worked in corporations before, and that's why I'm not in a corporation at all. That's why my Broadcasters podcast is all about this kind of stuff. Because when you see the lack of creativity from all these streaming services, the networks, and you see how cheap the programming is right now and how we're not getting much storytelling and much quality, the character development of shows that we had from years ago to now, you notice how much lower the bar is right now? Look at what Netflix provides us. How good a quality is all that content? It's not. They're spending a lot of money on it. Spending a lot of money on a lot of crap. Which is why I don't spend $23 to $26 a month for Netflix. But yet I will still spend $26 a month on movies. First run movies, original movies, Friday nights, opening night at the movie theater. And I can still get some great quality movies out there. Because at least when you see a movie go to the movie theater, that studio is gambling on the fact that they got to give money back to the movie theater company because they're taking a big take off the movie, but they have a better chance of making a whole lot of money in the movie itself. So when those movies come out, they're trying to go and put a gamble that people are going to go watch the movies. Netflix doesn't matter. They already got your money. And that's what the WWE and the TKO Group right now has, where they're already getting your money anyway. They don't really care. They got you hooked because you're already kind of stuck on the routine of watching shows on Monday nights, on Friday nights, and NXT on Tuesday nights. Like, you got it all set. It's a lot of programming to demand all these people to watch. But part of the thing is that you think there's a lot of fans that are behind this because of the fact that how many content creators are out there. See, there's a lot of creativity in the content creators to make something of content off of what we're getting from WWE. That's a fascinating thing. Because then you also got a lot of Money Morgan quarterbacks. You got a lot of people with some real fantasy booking ideas and all these thoughts they can think of what they can think of the matches and the shows. And they have a way of trying to book themselves into the idea of like, well, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. This is going to be great. You could try to say it is, but it's not. Whatever happened after the Bloodline, that major Bloodline storyline, everything after WrestleMania 40, you can examine all that. Because that is the moment when TKO Group Holdings took hold of this company. Whatever the plan was going to be set for WrestleMania 40, after that, went to a different level. And things, obviously, whatever was Vince's vision has disseminated them. It's not even there anymore. It's something else. So what are you going to do about that? Nothing's going to change on it. But the bigger problem now is that if it was a Vince McMahon that was still at the helm and things started going the wrong direction, there would be a correction. There would be an attempt to try to salvage. Now, one of the things that we need to make aware overall is that I am never going to be of the opinion. And for those out there that think that AEW is going to be doing what WCW did and create some Monday Night War scenario where they're going to overtake WWE, it's not going to happen. AEW is a standalone. That's all there is to it. An interesting comment made by Jason Solomon, the Solo Monster, which I thought was very interesting, but will contribute nothing to the performance of WWE as an entire entity. But because the checkbook is available, Triple H is able to go ahead and make some deals here with Nick Khan or whatever, and they are able to go ahead and acquire other properties and create a system for their sake solely so they can be able to go and have global control of the whole environment. Because they're not going to create the talent themselves. It's very aware. Don't be surprised if the Performance Center goes away or becomes something else. Because NXT clearly will not be so much of a developmental system. Somewhat it is, but it's not. It's a standalone promotion. But they're trying to incorporate some stars they have because they have their factories or assembly lines of trying to bring in stars or trying to build some stars in their silos that they have right there, if it's going to make much of a difference. But interesting take from Solo Monster here. He was on Tuesday night, the TNT show that he does with JD from New York 206. And I want to just play this clip real quick because I thought what he said was pretty poignant.
Well, he's got the relationship with CMLL and New Japan, so he's cultivated relationships with other promotions. WWE wasn't doing that until Tony Khan started doing that.
I know.
Right? Forbidden Door, working with New Japan, all of a sudden. Now, part of it was Vince, and Vince went away, and Triple H may just have a different mentality, but it is kind of funny how a lot of this stuff was going on, started to happen with AEW, and then WWE all of a sudden, they want to be in business with everybody. They got partnerships with TNA, and they got partnerships with Pro Wrestling Noah over in Japan, and now they just bought a 51% controlling interest in the second biggest Lucha Libre promotion in Mexico.
Okay, Solo Monster makes a good point, but I want to turn around that perspective and say it like this. Because there's two ways to look at it. From Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, and the internal team. And you can say Nick Khan in that matter as well. Ring of Honor actually first started that. Because Ring of Honor was actually creating the relationships with New Japan and with Mexico. And they were trying to go and work their route to take stars they can bring together for global wars, War of the Worlds, those type of events, the G1 Supercard, that all was a result of all these relationships they had with international promotions to bring in stars from there. Stardom in the same way. And some of the other promotions are doing the same thing here. MLW does that same kind of thing, where they work with CMLL, or they're working with Pro Wrestling Noah or All Japan, and other promotions out there. They could try to go and bring in stars. So under Vince McMahon, the idea was, let's build satellite offices, new booking offices, to create and to build new talent. So Triple H, he nixed that idea. They didn't want to go that route. They can still say they can go that route because they make all these promotions NXT promotions if they want to do that. Put that under the umbrella of that. But they have all these different internal, this chain of promotions that they have that they can work off of that are not the main roster. So that hierarchy, that chain up of starting from the developmental and moving up into the main roster, there's no direct way there. Because there are certain stars that will never make it up there. There's no direct path up there. Because the corporate entity in there, or what decisions are being made from TKO Group Holdings, filtering it down to Triple H and the team, they're going to be told, okay, here are the stars they want to have up there because of certain things that they can monetize off of. Meanwhile, Triple H is probably going to still have some say over some stars they're going to have over there, but the truth is, Triple H's time is going to be limited. He is not going to be there for long to take that control of Chief Content Officer. Once there's some failure going on, all the company's going to do is replace. But this whole hierarchy, this whole infrastructure, it's nothing to do with trying to do the same thing Tony Khan's doing. It's a nice way to put it, and a nice way for the fans to think about it. The truth is, they're just creating a pipeline to acquire talent. Why go recruit talent when you just buy the companies that have it? That's what they did. They haven't bought a controlling interest into Evolve or TNA, but that's not out of the argument right now, because for WWE as well, remember, it's not just the roster. It's not just the promotion. Because to be honest with you, what AAA has right now on the roster, they could care less. The Dr. Wagners, the Johan Borgesa, all the women's stars they have down there, they don't care. They could put a roster down there and put them in AAA because they want control of the arenas down there. They want the presence that's down there. They want the IP that's been built over 30 years of AAA. And they want that tape library. So it probably didn't cost them that much to get this deal off the ground. Because also for AAA, they want to just be able to controlling interest and have somebody have controlling interest so they can get the capital they need to build more on the shows. But of course, now they have an undertaking because now they have to go ahead and have the betters of WWE. And trust me, they can go ahead and buy out AAA whenever they want. They have the money if they decide to go and do so. Evolve, the same thing. TNA, the same thing. TNA is just another promotion, but it's like a Canadian promotion. And they have their relationships. So it just doesn't matter. It's a nice way to go and put where Tony Khan's doing it, but see, Tony Khan and Billy Corgan, as a matter of fact, they kind of have the same kind of idea of building relationships. Except Billy Corgan wants to do a territory system like the old days. He wants the NWA to build into a territory system, so he has his relationships, but they're almost working like booking offices. And now he's trying to culminate that once again with the Crockett Cup. He's got that coming up this weekend. I'm going to try to find that so I can watch that this weekend and report on that for next week. That's actually cool. I saw Natalia's going to take on Kenzie Page for the women's world title. Kenzie Page has held that belt for a long time right now. Rhino will take on Tom Latimer for the NWA World Heavyweight title. By the way, this is at 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. And a lot of the stars they've had around within the company, the TV title, Carson Bartholomew Drake and Brian Idol against each other. Mims, NWA National Heavyweight Champion against Max the Impaler. So intergender match. Thrillbilly Silas Mason for Alexander Hammerstone. That'll be awesome. Which the Crockett Cup is doing a little bit of crossover. Hammerstone just returned back to MLW. Natalia with the WWE being allowed to go and work in this match. Gail Kim, special guest referee for this match. Rhino coming in from his work now AEW. But again, Rhino's like kind of like a free agent anyway, working across the board. And there will be a lot of tag teams in the Crockett Cup final and what they're going to do with that as well. So there's a lot to be said about that. But anyway, that's this weekend. I'll try to catch up on that and find out where I can catch that show. Unless I got to find out a trailer or I find another way to go watch it, I will find a way to watch it. And see if I can report back on that for next week's show. But Billy Corgan has this territory system within the States. Tony Khan wants to be able to have relationships so that he can go ahead and take stars. Not so much because of how WWE is doing it. It is because of the fact that WWE wants to be able to have it all internal with themselves. Because how many of those stars are working the other companies unless WWE is allowing the opportunity, and that WWE is favorited in the opportunity as well. Giving you an example for a proof of point. So Trick Williams and Joe Henry had a sit down with Ava, setting things up for the match at Battleground. Let's go and play what was said here. That Joe Henry is putting up the title, and Ava comes across and now wants to go ahead and make comments about this. So we'll take what was said in this contract signing and see what's said here. But Trick Williams says he's bigger than NXT, bigger than TNA. Here's what Trick says.
What meant the most to me. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take what means the most to you. And that's that TNA title. You should have stayed in your sweet spot, where you was getting your flowers, where you was the man at TNA. But next Sunday, we're going to Battleground. And that's my house.
Well, if anyone should know about breaking out, taking risks, having the confidence to do more, to be more, it's you. But somewhere along the way, you forgot about that. Instead, bitching about what you deserve or what you should have handed to you.
Randy Orton handed you a 3-minute ass whooping, didn't he?
I don't care who did what. Security is right outside that door. Do not make me call them in here. Sit down, both of you, and sign this.
Look, TNA is the hottest it's been in years. That's because every morning I wake up and my goal is to make this the biggest brand it can possibly be. And that means me as the champion. I'm defending this against TNA wrestlers, NXT superstars, and I'm putting them down. Do you understand that next Sunday, the TNA World Championship will be on the line on a WWE PLE? Do you understand how big that is?
Of course I know, Joe, because I'm in the match.
And the way they had to have Joe Henry watered down the value or the prestige of TNA itself, it's a secondary company. It's inferior. And the fact that Joe Henry can go and talk about this, being the champion and trying to go and build the company like they're drawing the come up, you're just throwing away that the company ever even had a legacy or even had any kind of a long-standing presence for 20 years plus. It's like we're not even going to consider that. It's like this retcon history they're doing right now. And then here's what Trick Williams says that kind of almost signals the fact he's going to win the title off of Joe Henry at Battleground.
This match will be historic because of me. And there's something you need to realize, Joe. You are a social media sensation. Trick Williams is bigger than NXT. I'm bigger than TNA. Hell, I'm bigger than both of them combined. Damn it, I'm Hollywood, Trick. And I don't have to tear you down or mess with what you believe. Because the truth is, every man has his 15 minutes of fame.
There's a lot of things I find wrong with this. Trick Williams should be on the main roster. Why is he still here working with Joe Henry and working on the TNA World Heavyweight title? Why are we doing that with him? This is not a step up for him. This is a step sideways. I would have preferred, if you're going to do anything right now on that main roster, especially after WrestleMania, Trick Williams has had more than enough time right now to work in NXT. Move him up to that main roster. The guy looks like a star. He can work it. There is no reason why he shouldn't be up there right now. And look, you don't want to put him on Raw, put him on SmackDown. Because there's going to be a lot of things you can be doing with him right now. It's not like they have to have like one star they have to focus on that's young, and they can have multiple stars. Why they don't want to do that? There's a lot of things you can be doing with Trick Williams. I would keep away from Carmelo Hayes. Look at how well they did with him. Carmelo Hayes is an afterthought now. But Trick Williams shouldn't be in the same direction. But we know what happens. If they decide to go with Trick Williams and put him up in that main roster, they put so much time and effort into him, so much capital into him. This next in line project prospect, that if he doesn't pan out, there's a lot of money they put on him that's going to go away. And if he doesn't do well, the corporation is going to basically say, well, I mean, yeah, God, man, there was such an upside with him. Cut. You gotta let him go. Released. And he will be taken by another company. And probably will do pretty well with his career. But they don't want to do anything about that. And it's not as if they don't have enough time for Trick Williams to be working matches or being a part of storylines or gimmicks at this point anyway, or just to build up his persona into a debut. It's not as if the company doesn't have the time. It's not as if they don't have the people that can actually put together storylines or gimmicks like NXT. Look, Jeremy Borash or whoever else they have out there that does some of these vignettes and all, some of these other things that are on location. It's not as if they don't have the ability to do this. It's not as if they don't have the post-production prowess to create some great packages to build some storylines. They don't want to do that. And you have to understand that as I close this out tonight, that some of the things we remember about WWE when it comes to Vince, the packages, the way those big gimmicks and storylines, you cannot expect other companies to do the same thing. Tony Khan's not going to go do all that. Tony Khan is still a fanboy at the end of the day, but he's got a wherewithal to go and do what he wants with his money and the talent he has. But what he has done, he's accrued a lot of talent. There are some storylines worth watching on that program in the 4 hours that they have to work off of. I mean, hey, I have to give credit to AEW. The fact that Warner Brothers Discovery told them, hey, we're going to take off. And there's no more Battle of the Belts, right? I haven't seen any more of those anymore. And Rampage is gone. 4 hours devoted. The way they've done things when it comes to Collision, to kind of just work it around, like if they can't get it on Saturday nights and get it with a good number, and all these different things that are coming across where they can't keep it over there because WWE wants to put a show up there, and Collision doesn't want to go head-to-head with it because it's not going to do well. Or they're utilizing Collision to be put on nights where you want to get after NBA coverage. You want to get after whatever. Like, you're taking advantage of sports programming that's live and taking that property and using it to go and continue to build off that audience, to expand the audience that you get for advertising a little bit longer after the game, after the post-show coverage. And you get something off of that. Because we've seen that when they've done pretty good with some of the numbers after they come up after, say, the All-Star game, or if they come back after NBA playoffs or whatever it is, or March Madness, they've done pretty well off of that. But that's because, hey, Warner Bros. Discovery, that's their choice to put them on Saturday night's prime time. And for WWE, they're doing a thing now where they're more than happy to go ahead and, push their chest out and say, fuck it. We're just going to go and put our programming wherever we want. Do we want to conflict Double or Nothing? Absolutely. We want to conflict, the Arena Mexico show? Absolutely. They don't care anymore. They're not, the corporation that WWE is under, they're not going to care about being respectful. And for Triple H, it's probably kind of a troll, probably getting a chuckle, a guffaw off the fact that he's able to go ahead and have his programming at any time. There's no respect for the business. It's like, oh, we'll just go and jump over everybody. We don't care who we're up against. We're WWE. We're the only one that matters. So they can go and pump their chest all they want, but they're not giving us what we should be expecting of them. Now, I'm not the kind of person that wants to go and just continue to criticize this company just because I feel like it just feels good to me. No, I'm always going to be critical because I want the company to be better. Because once they get themselves right and their model that has worked for them for 50 years, storylines, gimmicks, things like that, bring it all back. If they figure it out themselves before corporate make some real changes to the company that are going to be unable to be reversed, there are years left to kind of figure this out before that happens. And there is now a little bit of rumbling from the juvenile delusional fandom that are a little bit upset with the company right now on some of their booking decisions, which are being done for the purpose of making more money on revenue, making more money on tickets, the house show experience. Hey, you want to get John Cena on a show, retirement tour? You're going to pay top dollar for that. And I'm not talking about AJ Francis. So everything like that. One more thing I want to bring up, and again, we're going to talk about this for next week, is Double or Nothing. AW is coming up. And again, NXT Battleground, which that Trick Williams, Joe Henry match is coming up. I guess we'll talk about that same night. I will try to double watch on both of those shows with NXT Battleground and Double or Nothing. I still don't know why they're going to do that, but they are. But again, WWE, they're more than happy to go ahead and put counter programming up. They want to just do it. They're going to troll. They don't care. So Battleground up head to head with Double or Nothing next week. Money in the Bank head to head with NXT Worlds Collide. That's going to be on June 7th. And I forget if All in Texas was going to be conflicted with on July 12th, but I guess not. But there's all these things that are going on to try to build up off of. And that's what they want to go and do. So that's how we're going to close it out tonight. Remember, I did do a Backlash recap. Make sure to go and check that out for yourselves. And we'll see what happens out of the Crockett Cup. I'll try to get back and get a report on that for you all as well. We'll talk about Double or Nothing next week, which a lot of good matches coming up. Let's talk about it. Anarchy in the Arena coming up. Ospreay and Paige. Mercedes Moné, Jamie Hayter in the Owen Hart Tournament. Toni Storm, Mia Shirakawa for the women's title. We'll talk all about that next week on the Wrestling Observer Podcast because wrestling needs us.